Research methodology. Now, this is a topic which is common to both paper 1 and paper 2. So, there are a lot of questions coming in from this topic. And this is a very important topic as far as a UGC NET aspirant is concerned because research is a part of a person who's going to pursue either lectureship or junior research fellowship. Either ways, research is going to be a part of your life. So, this topic, I hope you understand it. So, let's go in. Introduction. Research is a systematic process of doing an investigation in order to explore something, establish underlying facts and truth, and finally arrive at new conclusions. Now, what does research mean? Now, comes from a French term, researcher, which means to investigate, to study, to find out more, research, determine, compare, verify, calculate, describe, etc. Now, it includes any creative work undertaken on a very systematic basis that favors increase in the knowledge. So, you are actually, by doing research, you are contributing to the already available pool of knowledge in any particular subject. Now, how do you define research? Define Research has been defined in numerous ways, and one broad definition is given by Godwin Colibau, in which it is given in the broadest sense of the word. Definition of research includes any gathering of data, information, and facts for the advancement of knowledge. Another definition by John Creswell, he stated that research is a process of steps used to collect and analyze information to increase our understanding of a topic or an issue. It consists of mainly three steps. This is a very general way in which you can say research is first there is a question, collecting data to answer the question, and presenting the answer. This is the most simplest way you can actually tell what a research is. Now, why is research being conducted? What are the major objectives of research? First of all, it is to gain familiarity and achieve new insight into specific research, to portray accurately the characteristics of any situation or a group or an individual situation or a group of situations or any particular person or a group, to discover the truth and facts about a problem, to determine the frequency with which something occurs, to test different hypotheses or cause and effect relationship between variables, to understand social life and gain control over social behavior, to study and resolve contradiction in any area of a study. Then, to put forward an entirely new theory or a concept, to explain some unexplained horizon of knowledge, to reach more conclusions from available data, to find new conclusions with already collected data, and to know all conclusions with new data and information. Then, how do you say what is the criteria for a good research? Whatever may be the type of research, there are different criteria for saying a research is good. The first and foremost, the purpose should be very clearly defined, and common concept should be used. It should not be something that people can't understand. Research procedure should be very well described and sufficient detail so that another researcher can repeat the research and should get the same type of results. Now, the next is the procedure should be carefully planned to yield results that are as objective as possible. Now, objective means there are certain things like objective and subjective. Now, objective data is more accurate compared to subjective data. For example, you want to measure the color of some certain product that you have made. Now, objectively, you can say that you can use a colorimeter for measuring the color, or subjectively you can just describe it saying that it is light yellow. Now, light yellow for me might be different from how you perceive light yellow. So that is what subjective means. It differs from a person to person, whereas objective means if you are doing it in a colorimeter, it will give you like the exact nanometers or the exact measure of the color, lightness of it, or etc. So that has a more valuable or valid or an accurate result compared to subjective data. Now, the researcher should also report the matter with complete frankness. He should be honest. Should tell about the flaws in a procedural design that he must have come across. So after you have done your research design, you must have felt that this is the right method, but then upon doing the research you felt that this is not, so many things have gone wrong. So many of us have a lot of problem in admitting our mistakes. So a researcher should actually say that this is not the right way. I had made a mistake, so this, instead of this is the better method. So the next step, criteria is analysis of data should be sufficiently adequate to reveal its significance, and the methods of analysis should be appropriate. When you are analyzing the data, you may be using statistical tools and techniques, and all those things should go for a valid and reliable data analysis methods. Then, what are the qualities of a good research? A good research is something which is supposed to be done systematically. It should not be done like, okay, we are going to a lab and doing some things, and you're reporting it. It's not that like that. It should have a particular protocol in which you have to follow a particular steps, and then you have to do it in a systematic manner. Good research is logical, of course. It should be guided by the rules of logical reasoning. You should not go for like stupid things, it has absolutely no logic. So such things should not be done. Now induction, there should be the type, the induction and deduction should be done. That is, induction is a process of reasoning from a part to the whole. That is, from getting an insight on a particular data, should be able to generalize it. That is called as induction. That is, getting the solution for a particular problem. You're going to extrapolate it to a general, or a bigger population. That is called as induction. Whereas deduction is the process of reasoning from some premise to a conclusion. That is, from a general thing to a specific thing. That is deduction. Now, the next point is good research is empirical. Empirical means it should be have dealing with concrete data. The research should be valid. It should have some objective material. It should not be some assumptions. Just like you're thinking that this is how it should be. No, you should not. It should be based on empirical data. Now, the next term is research ethics. Now, ethics are the set of rules that govern our expectations or some behavior. Now, they are research ethics refer to set of ethical guidelines that guide us on how scientific research should be conducted. Now, they govern the standard of conduct for scientific researchers. It is how you should responsibly conduct the research. So the first, most important about research ethics is protecting human participants. There is something called as informed consent. Means when your human beings are involved in your study, if you are going to test some medicine on human participants, their their safety is of utmost importance. You should not test something without their consent, without their permission. Should give you should tell them that this is you're being a part of the study, and you should be making them as comfortable as possible. The second objective is to ensure that research is conducted in a way that it serves the interest of the individual, group, and society as a whole. The third objective is to examine specific research activities and projects, about management of risk, protection of confidentiality, process of informed consent. All these things are very important. Now we have discussed about research methods, right? The different types of how research can be done. Now, what is a research methodology? Now, these two seem the same, but they are actually two different terms. Now, research methods includes all those techniques or methods that are adopted for conducting research. They are the different types of ways in which you can do research. Now, on the other hand, research methodology is the way in which a particular research is being carried out, or how research problems are solved systematically. It is the science of how research is conducted. So these two are two different terms. Now let's move on to the different types of research. So, types of research are different in nature, that is, depending on how it is carried out, what are the aims of it, etc. Now, the first type is exploratory study. Now, exploratory study is about how exploring into a new theme or a new subject which is unexplored earlier, something which is you're delving into something which was the knowledge which knowledge is not available at present. That is called as an exploratory study. So finding out different causes of a particular phenomenon, etc. Now the lot of research was work was carried out during the 2019, the COVID-19 pandemic. When it hit, it is something new, right? It was unheard of earlier. There was a coronavirus, but this variant was different, and it is a global pandemic. And so a lot of things were different. So those the initial studies which were carried out were completely exploratory in nature. Now the next type of study is a descriptive study. Now this is to describe a particular phenomenon, to how it is. You're not going to give any solutions or suggest any causes or effects. You're just going to describe what is there, what is the current scenario. So these can be two types: cross sectional study. Now cross sectional study is about a particular point of time. Now for example, you are going to study the effects of alcoholism of parents on the study behavior of children. Now you're going to take you're going to take a sample. You're going to take some a number of students from students and their parents from a particular school or from a particular area, and then you're going to study them. Now this is going to happen like at a particular point of time. But in a longitudinal study, you're going to study the same subjects for a longer period of time, maybe a few years. You're going to study from a child, from the time a child is small, maybe 4 or 5 years old, and then as a child grows up, how he's being affected by the parents' alcoholism. So that is a longitudinal study. When the thing is carried out over a period of years or over a period of time, it is called as longitudinal. Cross sectional is when a study is carried out only in a particular point of time. Now the next is experimental study. Now experimental study is where you're doing an actual experiment. You are actually trying to see the relationship between two variables. That is an experimental study. For example, there was this very popular ad which was there on television long time back, that is about Horlicks. You must have all seen it. Or it was the thing is it was a boarding school. There are two sets of children, students are from 5 to 10-year-old students. And 50% of the students were given Horlicks as their morning drink, and the 50% of the children were given another drink. And they were tested. That is, the experiment was carried out, and they were tested like how their performance was. Both the groups were studied. And and after some time, they were they this ad itself was, it was an advertisement, right? So naturally it was shown that the students who drank Horlicks became taller, sharper, stronger. So that was it's an example of a experimental study. That is, you're controlling certain situations, and then you are checking out the outcomes of it. That is an experimental study. Now historical study is, you are studying the historical phenomenon, what happened years ago, like what happened in the Mughal empire. What how where the situations there, what are the type of art forms there. All those things come under historical study. There you cannot do any manipulation there, because there is no chances of controlling variables. You're not going to do any experimental there. You're just going to describe what was happened there. That is, already all the events have occurred, and you just have to report it. That is a historical study. So an in-depth, you have to go through many artifacts, many historical records and things like that for a historical study. So these are the different types of research. Now let's discuss all these types as between each of them there are different types, subtypes also. So let's see, descriptive versus analytical. So these are completely different types of research. First is descriptive research is, it mostly consists of surveys, fact finding. That is, you're just describing what a phenomenon is. Whereas analytical is, it is not just describing it, you are analyzing it. You have to use already available facts and analyze them to make a critical evaluation of the subject. Now for a descriptive research, you're not going to make any conclusion based on how, why, and how of all these things. You're just describing that. But in an analytical research, in a phenomenon, you are going to add your own analysis, your evaluation. You're critically evaluating a particular subject. That is descriptive versus analytical. Now the next was applied versus fundamental. Now applied means you are going to find a solution to a problem encountered by a firm, an industry, society. So you are there is an at the end product will be a solution. You're going to come up with a solution for a problem. But in fundamental research, you're not going to find any practical solutions. You're just going to have any general, you're going to formulate a theory or a generalization. You're going to say this is going to be, this is this and this. That is what is your conclusion. But in an applied research, you are actually going to give out a practical solution. But in a fundamental research, you're just going to give a theory that this is how it is. you know Fundamental research, all those theories we had studied in child development, like the psychosexual theory, those are not giving any particular solutions. They are actually, proposing, the theories are stating that this is how it is, that's it. There is no solution, or psychosexual theory is, how the children will behave in a particular manner. This is just, it is a statement. There is no solution, or there is no, action based on it. Now, the next types is quantitative versus qualitative. Now, quantitative research relates to aspects that can be quantified or can be expressed in terms of quantity. All those measurable things. For example, if you're carrying out any laboratory experiment, so you have the, how much of, particular nutrient is present in a new variant of a food crop. So such things are very quantitative in nature. You know how much, this many, this mg of calcium is present, amount of fiber is present. These are quantitative. Whereas qualitative means it is something which is has to do with qualitative phenomena. There are certain immeasurable things. For example, attitude towards, teachers and things like that can only be described. You can't actually quantify it as such. You may use certain, scales, like rating scales or example, but it can't be really quantified in numbers or in actuality. So qualitative is usually is, your feelings, your it is mostly in verbal and written feedback. Narrate is a, narrative story. For example, if you're doing a case study of people who are being affected, who were affected by a flood or a tsunami. So you can't just give a, how things were. You have both quantitative data and qualitative data. Quantitative data you can give in terms of how much of, how much land was lost, or you can say what is the amount of money, the, financial losses they incurred. Such things can be done as that. Those are the quantitative data. Whereas in the qualitative data, how much of, psychological agony they went through, the kind of feelings they had, all these things, the taste, certain things like appearance, beauty, all these things are qualitative in nature. You can't actually measure them. So that is about qualitative and quantitative research. Next is conceptual versus empirical. The research related to some abstract idea or theory is known as conceptual research. Mostly philosophers and thinkers use it for developing new concept or for reinterpreting the existing one. So all these theoretical researches come under conceptual research, whereas empirical research is completely about observation, about facts, about, quantifiable things. Those are usually objective matter. All those experimental data all comes under empirical research findings. Now let's discuss the research process, or in other words, the research methodology, how research is carried out. The research process consists of a series of steps or actions required for effectively conducting research. Now, there are different steps involved. Formulating the research problem or your topic. What are you going to research about? That is the main, or that is the foundation stone. Why are you conducting the research? What is it for? That is the research problem. Next step is extensive literature study. That is, you're going to, in your topic, you're going to first find out what all previous research was carried out, who all has done it, or what all areas have been covered, what all needs to be covered, which all, subjects were, explored. All these things are coming under extensive literature survey. You can go on, internet search engines, your web of science, or any other platforms where you have a lot of journals, all the research published material, where you find the research materials, the books everywhere. All those things come under literature survey. Then, based on the literature survey, you now have an idea. what all have been already done, what all needs to be done. And now you can develop your hypothesis. That is the third step. Based on that, you will develop a hypothesis. This is how my research is going to be. That is your hypothesis. Now we'll be discussing about hypothesis in detail. So let me tell about the fourth part, preparing the research design. The next is preparing that the research design is how you're going to carry out the study, which all, what are the sampling techniques be done, how which all area you're going to cover. All these things come in the research design. Then determining the sample design. The sample design is again how you're going to conduct the sampling of the study. Now sampling is a separate topic which we'll be discussing in detail, the different types of sampling, how sampling is carried out and all. So let's move on to the next step, that is collecting data. Now after you have selected your subjects for the study, now you're going to collect the data. There are different methods of collecting data which also we'll be studying in detail, like interview, surveys, case studies, and numerous other methods are there. So you're going to collect all your information. And then the seventh step, that is execution of the project, how you're going to carry out the research. And eighth one is analysis of data. After you have collected all your data, all your information, you're going to analyze it. You're going to analyze it with means of, there are different tests that can be carried out, like statistical analysis. Different statistical tools can be used, like ANOVA, correlation, regression, so many things based on the type of data you want to test, you want to analyze. So that is analysis of data. Then the next one is hypothesis testing. Now you're going to check your hypothesis was right or wrong. Did was your hypothesis, did the research study comply with this hypothesis, or is it giving another result? Was your assumption right or wrong? That is hypothesis testing. Now the next step is generalization and interpretation. What are your the results of your study? How can you generalize them? How can you apply them, etc.? And the next one is preparation of the report. Now whatever you have conducted, it is no use if you have not presenting it as a report, because if a research is carried out and you are keeping it to yourself, it is of no use to the society. So naturally the next step, that is a very important step, that is presenting the data. That is how you're going to prepare a report on it, that is how you're going to publish it, so that others also can benefit from it, and it can be replicated. So these are the different steps in the research methodology. You can there's a flow diagram in which the different steps are mentioned. The first starts with research question or the research problem, then comes the literature review, then you select the sample on which you're going to conduct the research, then you are going to select the different measurable variables, then you're going to collect the data, you're going to analyze the data, and at last you're going to write the report of the data. And then the last step or dissemination is, again, you are going to publish your data, or giving it to the public. That is called as dissemination. So these are the different steps in the research process. Okay, so we'll discuss these things, terms in detail. So research problem. Now, what we want to solve? That's very simple, right? Research problem is in general refers to some difficulty which a researcher experiences in context of either theoretical or practical situation and wants to obtain a solution. So it is any unanswered question you're going to find a solution to. Okay, so that is a research problem. Or basically your topic. What are you going to find out? That is research problem. Now, hypothesis is what we want to prove or disprove. This is a prediction or an assumption. It has to be tested. Now before you're doing the research, you should have a hypothesis. Now you're going to assume this is going to be the result. That is an hypothesis. It is a predictive statement which relates to a dependent variable and an independent variable. For example, there are students who take tuitions perform better than the others who do not receive tuitions. This is a hypothetical statement. You are assuming this before you are undertaking any study. Then next statement is a female students perform as well as a male students. The female, male, male, female, there is no difference between the performance of students, male and female students. This is another hypothetical statement. You're assuming it. Now you are going to put this hypothesis to test. That is, you're going to test it in the sense that you are actually going to go to students who are taking tuitions and who are not taking tuitions. You are going to ask them a lot of questions, you are going to check their performance in studies, and then you are going to find out if it is true. What did your assumption uh, come out right? The students who take tuitions, are they performing better, or the students who are not taking tuitions are say they have the same results? So this is the type of what is hypothesis, a predictive statement. Now, what is a hypothesis? How should it be? It must be very clear and precise. When it should be capable of being tested. Now, you can't just make a hypothesis that Mughal emperor, Akbar was something like this. You can't test that because naturally you can't. In historical studies, you don't have a hypothesis testing because you can't recreate those characters here and make a you can't test them. So hypothesis must state a relationship between two variables in a case of relational hypothesis. So should be some two variables should be there. So in this case, the taking tuitions is one variable, okay, and performance is another. Means you're going to check the influence of tuitions or the effect of tuitions on performance of the students. So these are the two variables. What are you going to test? So in scientific terms, taking tuitions is one variable and performance is another variable. So both of them can be tested. Like how many students are taking tuitions, what are how is the performance of each student? Both of them can be tested. Now, hypothesis must be specific and limited in scope. It should not be a very general, general hypothesis. It should be very, very specific, and it should be stated in the most simplest manner so it can be understood by all. Hypothesis must be consistent and derived from the most known fact. You should not give a very stupid hypothesis like watching this TV program will increase your some you can't give a very blanket statement of certain things like stupid hypothesis. You can't give it. So it must be consistent and should be derived from most facts. Now, research design. Now, research design is the arrangement of conditions for collection and analysis of data in a manner that aims to combine relevance with economy and procedure. So it is actually the conceptual structure in which a research is conducted, or it is a blueprint. How you have blueprint for different buildings, right? Just like that, research design is a blueprint for your research. That's it. It just gives an outline of how are you going to do the research. Now, designing designs happens to be in respect of what all are you going to include in your research design. First, important, what is the study about? Why is it there? Why are you going to study this? Is there any benefit of it? Where will you be carrying it out? What type of data is required? Where can you find out the data? What period of time will you include? Is it cross-sectional? Is it longitudinal? What will be the sample design? Who all are you going to do the research on? What techniques of data collection will be used? How will you analyze it, etc.? So these are the major things that you have to answer in a research design. Now, principles of research design is it should be replicable. That is, your research design should be in such a way that another person who sees your research design should be able to do it. Then randomization. Every individual should have equal chances to be selected in a sample from a population. It should not be very, you should not conduct, for example, in the study example that I have given, you should not, give, do your research on a particular, if you are doing research on, you're telling that you're going to generalize it in terms of, alcoholic parents and study behavior. You are going to do it in random population, not a your own relatives or very very specific groups of people. You can't do that. Then you should be, every person in the population should have an equal chance of being selected. Now, then local control, you should be able to, the subject should be, you should be able to have a control over the subjects. You should be able to balance the experimental conditions so that you have the maximum, you will get the accurate results. So in exploratory kind of research, formulative research studies, if you are going to have a precise formulating a problem from like very precise investigation. The three methods are being done. That is, this is how the research design will be for an exploratory research. That is, some you are completely going to explore a completely new area. The first step is survey of concerning literature. Is there anything that is there in published reports or books or journals, it is about the particular problem? Then experience survey. You can conduct a survey. And then analysis of insight stimulating examples. So what are the different certain phenomenon where it has occurred? So you're going to analyze those things. So these are the type of design in case of exploratory research. Now, in descriptive research, it will be a little different. First of all, you have to formulate the objective, design the methods of data collection, selecting the sample collection, etc. So this is the normal or the usual pattern of discussion of, the research design. In a hypothesis testing research, like usually it is an experimental study. For every all the studies, you don't have a hypothesis. For example, in a descriptive studies, you don't have a hypothesis. You don't need a hypothesis because you're only describing a situation. So in some cause relationship, such things, you need hypothesis. So in that, you need to clearly define the hypothesis. Then a very, very important term in this research is variable, especially in terms of, hypothesis testing researches. Variable is very, very important. So variables are any characteristics that take different values, such as can be height, age, temperature, test score, etc. Now that is so researchers often manipulate or measure independent and dependent variables to test cause and effect relationships. So here we are discussing about cause and effect relationship studies. So just like we have discussed about the tuition, taking tuitions, the students who have taken tuitions perform better, right? So that is an example of a study which uses variables. Now let's discuss two very, very, very important terms, that is independent variable and dependent variable. Now, independent variable is the cause. Its value is independent of other variables in your study. And dependent variable is your effect. Its value depends on changes in the independent variable. So, example, you are actually testing the earlier, and okay, another example is given here. You're designing a study to test whether changes in room temperature have an effect on math test score. So you are conducting an exam, a maths test, and you are placing students in one room, which is, very cold. Okay, it is temperature is set at 16 degrees Celsius, and the AC is, it's very cold. And another room, which is ambient temperature, very cool temperature is there, and you are checking if the temperature differences has an effect on the math test score. You're doing the study on the same set of children. Okay, one day it is with the 16 degrees Celsius, and the other day it is with 24 degrees Celsius or 25 degrees Celsius, which whatever is very comfortable room temperature. So here the independent variable is the temperature, the cause. You are varying room temperature, right? You are making it cooler for half the participants, you are making it warm for the other half. Your dependent variable is the math test scores or the effect. So that is the independent variable. You are measuring the math skills of all participants using a standardized text, and you are checking if they differ based on room temperature. You're going to choose samples which are all who have already been like almost the same category of marks, or who have the same level of IQ. Okay, then you are going to test them. This is the a study which is conducted, and the independent variable is the cause, or which something that you change, that is the independent variable. And the dependent variable is the effect, or what changes because of the independent variable. Okay, that is what is independent and dependent variable. Now, another variable is extraneous variable. Now, extraneous variable is any variable that you are not investigating, but it can affect the dependent variable of your research study. For example, a student, okay, she is in the ambient temperature, but she had a, she's not feeling well. She's had her period, or she's having stomach ache, and she's not being able to do the maths exam. But that study, that can affect the result. It's she's not performing bad because of the temperature, but she's performing bad because of her health issues. So such things are coming as extraneous variables, something that you're not investigation but can affect the dependent variable. And next one is a confounding variable. Is a type of extraneous variable that not only affects the dependent variable, but it also related to the independent variable. Now, something that is, it has an effect. For example, it has an effect on the independent variable as well. So she has, for example, a confounding variable. An example is this student has some problem with temperature changes. That is, if the temperature is too cold, she feels nauseous, or she feels she gets cold. So such things are confounding variable, but you never took in such things into consideration while you were planning the research. So that is a confounding variable. So it is related to the independent variable. Now, variable selection is very important in research. You must choose certain variables which can be tested, which can be measured. Such things are very important. You can't take certain other certain variables which are very subjective in nature. For example, you're testing somebody's love for nature. You can't actually test that, right? How will you quantify it? You can't, there is no measure for it. Or love for some person, you can't actually give a measure of love for anybody. So such things are, you can't treat them as a variable selection. So purpose of such selection of a variable is to determine the set of variables that will provide the best fit for a research, so that accurate predictions can be made. So it is one of the most difficult aspects of research. So these are the, there are three different, again, one more time, this it's been repeated because these terms are very, very important. Independent variable, dependent variable, and controlled variable. Now here there is an example, a very sweet example. That is, independent variable is a liquid that is used to water each plant. Okay, that is being that is different for different plants. That is one in which in A, B, C, three plants are there. You can see the different plants over here. And in the first plant, you're actually giving some soda, some Coca-Cola, you can see Pepsi or Coke, you're pouring into the plant. In the second plant, you're actually pouring juice into the plant. And in the third plant, you're pouring water. Now you're going to test which plant grows better. Is it the one which Coke is poured, which is the one juice is poured, or one in which water is poured? This is a very simple, sweet example. I mean, very cute example, I can say. So the liquid used to water each plant is independent, right? They are being changed. That is the cause. Then the dependent variable, what are you going to measure? What is the effect of it? You're going to check the height or the health of the plant. That is what you're going to measure. Then something else is remaining constant. Whatever is being constant, you're going to control certain things, right? So that is everything you want to remain constant and unchanging. For example, the type of plant used, you are all the both the plants are all the plants are going to be a particular you're giving lady's finger plants, okay, of the same the same soil, the same amount of liquid is same, the soil type is the same, the amount, the type of plant used is the same, everything is constant. So whatever is being constant is called as controlled variables. Whatever is changing is called as independent variable. Their effect is called dependent variable. Hope this is clear to you, because this is very, very important. All these things are being asked multiple times. This is dependent variable, independent variable, etc. So again, another slide I have shown just to get this concept very clear. What is an independent variable? What thing did you change? That is your independent variable. Control is what is that is being controlled, which is for comparison, used to compare it. Then dependent variable, what is being measured. So
the what is being measured is the dependent variable, and constant, that everything that stays constant is called as a control. Okay, so these are the different steps in research. So we have covered a lot today. There is research methodology, different design, research design, hypothesis testing, independent, dependent, extraneous variables, controlled variables, etc. So hope everything is clear to you, because this portion has to be very well, registered in your mind, so that you are able to, do this, especially which is there in all the, part A, part 2, etc. Okay, so hope it's very clear to you.